On a foggy afternoon in the Canary Islands, two Boeing 747 Jumbos, giants of the sky, found themselves on the same runway. Orders were given, words were misunderstood, and engines were advanced. In less than a minute, one of the deadliest accidents in aviation history unfolded. This is the Tenerife Airport disaster, the chain of decisions, the misread transmissions, the fog that hid the truth, and the safety lessons that changed commercial flight forever. March 27, 1977, Los Rodeos Airport, today known as Tenerife North. A small regional field with a single runway and limited apron space. A bomb had exploded earlier that day at Gran Canaria Airport, forcing many inbound flights to divert to Los Rodeos. The field, designed for light to moderate traffic, suddenly hosted several wide-body jets. Congestion and improvisation followed. Two aircraft matter in this story. KLM Flight 4805, a Boeing 747-200 registered PHBUF, and Pan Am Flight 1736, a Boeing 747-121 registered N736PA. Both had been diverted, both were heavy with fuel and passengers, and both were trying, under deteriorating conditions, to continue on their journeys. Through the afternoon, the fog rolled in. Visibility on the ground had dropped so fast that crews who had clear sight 1 minute found themselves in near zero visibility the next. The control tower, elevated but not immune to the fog, lost visual contact with the runway and the aircraft. There was no ground radar at Los Rodeos. Radio became the only means to see. Because of the diverted traffic, many aircraft were parked on the taxiways. To enable departure, controllers instructed aircraft to backtrack, taxi down the runway, turn at the end, and back along the runway to the threshold line to line up and depart. This was a normal workaround until weather and communication problems made it dangerous. There was pressure, pilots were tired, several had been on long flights and long duty days. The KLM captain, Jacob Veldhuizen van Zanten, was highly experienced and revered within his airline. He had duties as a chief instructor and had appeared in company promotions. This human context matters when we later examine decisions. We go minute by minute. KLM 4805 had taxied to the runway. Pan Am 1736 had earlier been instructed to taxi via the runway to reach the apron, but missed one of the short taxi exits in the heavy fog and was still on the runway, searching for exit C4. Pan Am was still on the runway when KLM lined up. Radio transmissions from this period are the central evidence. We will quote from the cockpit voice and tower recordings. The wording and how each crew interprets it becomes the fulcrum of the tragedy. To the KLM crew, whose captain interrupted the first officer's readback with "We're going," the tower's "okay" sounded like an affirmative clearance. To the tower, saying "okay" was merely an acknowledgement that the message had been received and that the KLM was standing by. This ambiguity, a colloquial "okay" instead of clear, cleared or not cleared, was a fatal mismatch. A simultaneous transmission from Pan Am interfered with the KLM/tower exchange, producing static and overlapping voices. Shortly after, the KLM captain advanced thrust and began the takeoff roll. Moments later, the Pan Am skipper, Victor Grubbs, sighted KLM's landing lights through the fog and yelled, "Get off, get off, get off." The Pan Am flight engineer and first officer rapidly applied thrust and tried to vacate, but there was not enough room or time. KLM had passed V1, the decision speed beyond which an aborted takeoff is no longer recommended. The aircraft rotated. In a desperate attempt to clear the obstructing fuselage, the pilots tried to lift off. The KLM's tail scraped the runway. Its landing gear struck the Pan Am's fuselage. The collision ruptured fuel tanks and a massive fireball ensued. All 248 people on board the KLM flight perished. On Pan Am 747, 335 of the 396 occupants died. In total, 583 lives were lost. Only 61 passengers and crews from Pan Am ultimately survived. It remains the deadliest aviation accident in aviation history. Rescue response at Los Rodeos faced several challenges. Dense fog, limited ground access, and raging fires fed by the jet fuel. Eyewitnesses and first responders described scenes of chaos and desperate attempts to cut through fuselage and help survivors. Many survivors escaped via the intact left wing of the Pan Am aircraft and through openings in the forward cabin. Within hours, investigators arrived. Spain's Civil Aviation Accident and Incident Investigation Commission convened a multinational team to examine the wreckage, the recordings, and the procedures that led to the accident. The cockpit voice recorder and radio transcripts would become the backbone of the inquiry. The CIA IAC report concluded that the proximate cause was the KLM captain's attempt to take off without an explicit takeoff clearance from the tower. The captain had started the takeoff roll while the Pan Am aircraft was still on the runway. The report identified several interconnected contributors: diversion and congestion. Multiple diverted 747s crowded Los Rodeos. Taxiways were blocked. An unusual backtrack on runway procedure became common. Rapidly deteriorating visibility. Fog rolled in quickly, reducing crew and tower visual references. Radio interference and non-standard phraseology. Overlapping transmissions, non-standard words like the tower's colloquial "okay" and the KLM first officer's ambiguous "we are at takeoff" created misinterpretations. The KLM captain's seniority may have influenced the first officer's willingness to challenge the takeoff roll. Investigators reconstructed the radio exchanges line by line, analyzed the cockpit voice recorder, and tested alternative hypotheses. The simulated weather. Had the Pan Am vacated at C3 instead of C4, the collision would have still occurred. Any single weak link might have otherwise been survivable. The combination caused catastrophe. Accidents are seldom the fault of a single person. They are the end result of a chain. Human decision making, especially in high stakes, high stress environments, is shaped by culture, training, and organization norms. Authority gradient. In the KLM cockpit, the captain's reputation and seniority were key. For the first officer, interrupting him or contradicting him was difficult. The KLM first officer's phrase, "we are now at takeoff," is ambiguous under ICAO rules. Was it at takeoff position or a statement of intention? The tower's "okay" was ambiguous too. After Tenerife, ICAO and regulators tightened phraseology standards. Fatigue erodes situational awareness and decision making. Operational pressures contributed to the urgency the KLM crew felt. The disaster prompted industry-wide reforms. Phraseology and ATC procedures. ICAO standardized the use of critical words. "Cleared for takeoff" could only be used by controllers. Cockpit resource management. Tenerife accelerated CRM training, teaching crews to flatten authority, gradients, encourage challenge, and focus on teamwork. Tenerife is a classic Swiss cheese accident with multiple holes aligned to permit a catastrophe. Safety investigation aims to not scapegoat, but to learn. Tenerife's lessons have saved lives in the decades since. Memorials in Amsterdam, Tenerife, and elsewhere remember the 583 lives lost. Survivors, families, and rescuers carry the memory of how fragile life can be. The Tenerife disaster shows how language, culture, technology, and human frailty interact. It also shows how an industry can respond with humility and determination to make flight safer for all. If you fly or work in aviation, carry Tenerife's lessons. Be precise in your language, encourage your team to speak up, and respect the systems that keep us safe. The cost of complacency is too high.